A ruthless CEO loses a suitcase containing $100,000 only to have it returned by a struggling single mother waitress whose honesty challenges everything he believed about wealth and success. Their unexpected connection bridges two different worlds, proving that true riches aren't found in bank accounts, but in the hearts of those who dare to care. But before we continue, make sure to hit subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. Michael Harrington slammed. His office door shut and loosened his tie. Another day of making millions, and he felt empty inside. At 45, he had everything money could buy: a penthouse overlooking Central Park, a fleet of luxury cars, and more bank accounts than he could count. But tonight, he had to close one more deal, and this one required cash. A lot of it. "Mr. Harrington, the money has been prepared as requested," his assistant Janet said, walking in with a black leather suitcase. $100,000 in cash. Michael barely looked up from his phone. "Just put it on the desk and make sure my car is ready. I need to meet Wilson about that property downtown." The suitcase sat there while Michael argued on the phone with yet another business partner, trying to squeeze more money out of him. "Listen, Roberts, I don't care what your other investors are offering. My price is final." He grabbed the suitcase and stormed out, still yelling into his phone. The drive downtown was a blur of traffic and more angry calls. Michael didn't even notice when he set the suitcase down outside his car while checking some documents. He was too busy threatening to sue someone. It wasn't until he arrived at the meeting spot that his stomach dropped. The suitcase was gone. $100,000 in cash vanished. "No, no, no!" He frantically called his driver, his assistant, everyone who might have seen it. Nothing. The suitcase had disappeared somewhere between his office and downtown Manhattan. Back in his penthouse that night, Michael paced back and forth, drinking scotch straight from the bottle. His reputation would be ruined. Wilson would back out of the deal. The board would question his judgment. How could he have been so stupid? The rain pounded against his windows as thunder rolled across the city. Michael was about to pour another drink when he heard it. A knock at his door. "What now?" he growled, yanking the door open. There, dripping wet from the rain, stood a young black woman he'd never seen before. She looked exhausted, her waitress uniform still on under her wet coat. And in her hand was his black leather suitcase. "I believe this belongs to you, Mr. Harrington," she said simply. Michael stared at her, then at the suitcase, unable to process what he was seeing. Where did you find this?" "On the street, near your office building. I saw your business card fall out when someone almost kicked it. I've been trying to track you down all evening." Her name was Elise Parker, and she had spent hours after her shift at the diner trying to find him, just to return what wasn't hers. Michael invited her inside, his hands shaking as he opened the suitcase. Every dollar was there, untouched. "Why?" he asked, looking at her with disbelief. "Why didn't you keep it? This much money could change your life." Elise straightened her spine, meeting his eyes directly. "Because it's not mine, Mr. Harrington. It's that simple." "Nothing is that simple," Michael scoffed. "Everyone has a price. Name yours, a reward, 10,000, 20. "No thank you," Elise said, already heading for the door. "I need to get home to my son. I have another shift in the morning." "Wait!" Michael called out, suddenly desperate to understand. "At least let me call you a car. It's pouring out there." "I'll take the subway like I always do," Elise replied with a small smile. "Good night, Mr. Harrington." Long after she left, Michael sat staring at the suitcase, his world turned upside down. In a city where he thought everything and everyone was for sale, he'd just met someone who proved him wrong, and he couldn't stop thinking about her. As thunder continued to rumble outside, Michael Harrington, the man who thought he knew everything about human nature, realized he might have been wrong all along, and somewhere on a subway heading to Queens, Elise Parker had no idea that her simple act of honesty was about to change both their lives forever. Next morning, Michael couldn't focus on work. He kept thinking about Elise and her simple explanation, "Because it's not mine." No one in his world ever thought that way. His assistant Janet noticed something was off when he barely touched his morning coffee. "Are you feeling all right, Mr. Harrington?" she asked. "Janet, I need you to find someone for me," Michael said. "Her name is Elise Parker. She works as a waitress somewhere in Queens." It didn't take long for Janet to track her down. Elise worked at Mabel's Diner, a small place that had been serving breakfast specials for 30 years. Without telling anyone where he was going, Michael got in his car and drove there. The diner was nothing like the fancy restaurants he usually visited. The smell of coffee and pancakes filled the air, and the seats were worn from years of use. And there she was, rushing between tables with a coffee pot in her hand. "More coffee, sir?" Elise asked without looking up, reaching his table. "Yes, please," Michael replied, watching as she finally recognized him. "Mr. Harrington, what are you doing here? I wanted to thank you properly for yesterday and maybe buy you lunch." Elise shook her head. "I'm working, and really there's no need to thank me. I just did what anyone would do." "No," Michael said quietly. "They wouldn't. Please, just 30 minutes of your time. When's your break?" Elise sighed. "I have 15 minutes at 2 o'clock, that's all." At exactly 2, they sat in a booth at the back of the diner. Elise kept her apron on, knowing she'd have to rush back to work. "I have a son," she said, showing Michael a photo on her old phone. "Tommy, he's 8. He's the reason I work 2 jobs. He has asthma and the medical bills. Well, they're not easy, but we manage." "2 jobs and nursing school?" Michael asked, remembering the textbook he'd spotted in her bag the night before. "Night classes when I can afford them. I want Tommy to be proud of his mom." Elise checked her watch. "I should get back to work." "Let me help," Michael blurted out. "With Tommy's medical bills, your tuition—" "No," Elise cut him off firmly. "I'm not telling you this for money, Mr. Harrington. I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's—" Michael struggled to explain. "You showed me something yesterday. Something I'd forgotten existed. Real honesty. Let me do something in return. You want to do something? Be a regular customer. Leave good tips. That's honest work, not handouts." For the next week, Michael came to the diner every day. He learned that Elise's second job was cleaning offices at night. He discovered that Tommy loved superhero movies and wanted to be a doctor someday. He found out that Elise hadn't taken a day off in months. His business associates started noticing the change in him. Michael was distracted during meetings, checking his watch until it was time to go to the diner. He stopped attending his usual fancy business lunches. Even his brother David noticed something was different. "What's going on with you?" David asked one day. "The board is talking. You've been disappearing every day, turning down meetings. Are you in some kind of trouble?" "I'm fine," Michael insisted. "Better than fine, actually. I'm just seeing things differently lately." But trouble was coming. Victoria Stone, Michael's ex-girlfriend and head of a rival company, had started asking questions about his sudden interest in a small diner in Queens. She had private investigators following him, taking photos. One evening, as Elise was leaving her office cleaning job, Victoria was waiting by her car. "So you're the waitress who's got Michael Harrington slumming it in diners," Victoria said with a cold smile. "How much are you really after, honey? Everyone has a price. Name it, and I'll double it to have you disappear from his life." Elise stood her ground. "I'm not after anything, and I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," Victoria warned. "You have no idea what you're getting into. Michael's world will eat you alive. And what would Tommy think if some unfortunate rumors about his mother started spreading around his school?" Elise felt her hands shake, but her voice stayed steady. "Stay away from my son." That night, when Michael came to pick her up after work, something he'd started doing despite her protests, Elise was quiet. "What's wrong?" he asked, noticing her silence. "This was a mistake," Elise said softly. "You and me, we're from different worlds, Michael. Maybe we should stop pretending otherwise." "What happened? Did someone say something to you?" "It doesn't matter. I need to think about Tommy. I can't risk—" "Elise," Michael reached for her hand. "Tell me what happened, please." As rain started falling outside, Elise faced a choice. Tell Michael about Victoria's threats and risk making everything worse, or walk away from the first man who'd made her believe in love again. Either way, she knew nothing would ever be the same. The car ride was silent as rain pounded against the windows. Michael kept glancing at Elise, waiting for her to speak. Finally, she took a deep breath. "Your ex-girlfriend, Victoria Stone, paid me a visit tonight," Elise said quietly. "She offered to pay me to stay away from you. When I refused, she threatened to spread rumors about me at Tommy's school." Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "She did what?" "This is exactly why this won't work, Michael. Your world, it's all about power and money and threats. I can't expose Tommy to that." Michael suddenly pulled the car over, turning to face her. "Listen to me, Elise. Victoria doesn't represent my world. Not anymore. And I won't let her threaten you or Tommy. How can you stop her? She's right about one thing. I don't belong in your world. Today at the diner, I overheard some of your business friends laughing about you eating at such a cheap place. They were joking about what spell the waitress must have put on you. I don't care what they think, Michael insisted. For the first time in years, I'm happy, really happy. When I'm at that diner, eating slightly burned toast and drinking coffee that you always remember to make exactly how I like it, that's when I feel real. Elise wiped away a tear. It's not that simple. Why not? Because people like Victoria say so? Because we come from different backgrounds? The night you returned that suitcase, you showed me that honesty and integrity still exist. Don't let Victoria make you doubt yourself now. Just then, Elise's phone rang. It was Mrs. Martinez, her elderly neighbor, who watched Tommy when she worked late. Tommy's having an asthma attack, Mrs. Martinez said, panic in her voice. I can't find his inhaler. We're on our way, Elise said, her face pale. Tell him to stay calm and breathe slowly like the doctor showed him. Michael didn't hesitate. He turned on the emergency lights and drove as fast as safely possible through the rain-slicked streets. When they reached Elise's apartment building, the elevator was broken, as usual. 4th floor, Elise said, already running toward the stairs. They found Tommy sitting on the couch, struggling to breathe while Mrs. Martinez patted his back. Elise ran to her bedroom and found the spare inhaler in her dresser drawer. Within minutes, Tommy's breathing began to normalize. Michael watched as Elise held her son, whispering soothing words and stroking his hair. In that moment, seeing them together, he knew he couldn't let Victoria or anyone else destroy what was growing between them. The next morning, Michael walked into Victoria's office without an appointment. His ex looked up from her desk with a cold smile. Finally coming to your senses about your little waitress, she asked. Her name is Elise, Michael said firmly. And if you ever threaten her or her son again, I'll make sure every business contact you have knows about the insider trading you did last year. Victoria's smile disappeared. You wouldn't dare, you'd implicate yourself too. Try me, I've changed, Victoria. The old Michael cared about protecting his reputation above all else. The new one? He cares about protecting the people he loves. Love? Victoria laughed bitterly. You've known her for what, a few weeks? She's using you, Michael. Women like that always are. No, that's what you did. Elise is nothing like you. And if you don't believe me about the insider trading evidence, call your friend James at the SEC. I already sent him some very interesting documents this morning. Back at Mabel's diner, Michael sat at his usual booth, waiting for Elise's shift to end. He watched her work, refilling coffee cups, joking with regular customers, making everyone feel welcome. This was her world, and he was starting to love it more than his own. When Elise finally sat down across from him, she looked worried. Tommy's teacher called today. Someone's been asking questions about me at his school. Victoria won't be a problem anymore, Michael assured her. I took care of it. What did you do? Let's just say I reminded her that people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. He reached across the table and took her hand. Elise, I know you're scared. I know this isn't easy. But I'm not asking you to enter my world. Maybe I'm asking to be part of yours. Before Elise could respond, the diner's door chimed. Michael's brother David walked in, looking completely out of place in his $1,000 suit. So this is where you've been hiding, David said, his eyes taking in the worn booths and chipped coffee cups. The board's called an emergency meeting. Michael, they're voting on whether to remove you as CEO. Elise pulled her hand away from Michael's, standing up quickly. I should get back to work. No, stay, Michael said. David, what are you talking about? On what grounds? On the grounds that you've been neglecting the company, making questionable decisions and, David glanced at Elise, allowing personal entanglements to cloud your judgment. Michael stood up, anger building in his chest. He'd fought Victoria to protect Elise, but now he was facing a bigger battle, one that could cost him everything he'd spent his life building. The question was he ready to risk it all for a woman who had knocked on his door one rainy night and changed his entire world? The fluorescent lights of the Harrington Court boardroom cast harsh shadows as Michael faced the board members. These were people he'd known for years, some who'd worked with his father. Now, they all stared at him like strangers. This is ridiculous, Michael said, standing at the head of the table. The company's profits are up 20% from last year. This isn't about profits, Board Chairman Wilson Peters said, shuffling some papers. It's about judgment. Your behavior lately has been erratic, spending hours at a diner in Queens, threatening Victoria Stone. This isn't the Michael Harrington we know. Maybe that's a good thing, Michael replied. Maybe the Michael Harrington you knew needed to change. His brother David stepped forward. The board is prepared to offer you a generous retirement package. Step down quietly and your reputation stays intact. And if I refuse, then we'll be forced to make public some concerning financial decisions you've made recently. The press would love to hear about the 100,000 in cash you lost last month." Michael felt his blood boil. "I didn't lose it, and you know that." "Yes, your waitress returned it. How convenient. Are we sure this wasn't all staged, a way to win your trust?" Back at Mabel's diner, Elise was having her own crisis. Her son Tommy's teacher, Mrs. Anderson, had asked for a meeting. "Tommy's been distracted lately," Mrs. Anderson said gently. "He mentioned something about people following his mom, and there are rumors circulating among the parents." "Everything's fine," Elise assured her, though her hands were shaking. "We're just going through some changes." After the meeting, Elise found her friend and co-worker Jenny waiting outside. "Girl, you need to see this," Jenny said, showing her phone. There on the screen was a gossip website with the headline, "Harrington Heirs Secret Romance with Waitress, Gold Digger, or True Love." The article had photos of her and Michael at the diner outside her apartment, even one of Tommy. Her son's face was blurred, but still, they'd photographed her child. Elise felt sick. This was exactly what she'd feared. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Don't believe anything you read. I'll fix this, I promise." But Elise wasn't sure anything could be fixed. That evening, as she cleaned offices, she thought about how simple her life had been just a month ago. Hard, yes, but simple. Now everything was chaos. Meanwhile, Michael sat in his penthouse office surrounded by papers. He'd spent hours going through old records, board minutes, financial statements, and he'd found something interesting. "Janet," he called his assistant, "get me everything you can find on David's dealings with Crown Industries last year." Janet hesitated. "Sir, those files are sealed. Your brother marked them confidential." "I'm still CEO. Open them." What Michael found made his blood run cold. David hadn't just been meeting with their competitors. He'd been selling company secrets. The recent push to remove Michael wasn't about his relationship with Elise. It was about preventing him from discovering his brother's betrayal. Michael's phone rang. It was Elise. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice breaking. "They took pictures of Tommy, Michael. My son is being dragged into this mess." "Elise, wait. I found out what's really going on. This isn't about us. It's about my brother trying to cover his tracks. Give me 24 hours, please." There was a long pause. 24 hours, she finally agreed. "But after that, I have to do what's best for Tommy." Michael hung up and immediately called an old friend at the SEC. "Remember that favor you owe me? I need it now." The next morning, David walked into his office to find Michael waiting. "Crown Industries," Michael said simply. "Ring any bells?" David's face went pale. "How did you find out that you've been selling our technology patents to them? That? You've been planning this takeover for months. The better question is, how long did you think you could hide it?" "You can't prove anything." Michael smiled. "Check your phone." David's phone buzzed with a news alert. "Breaking: SEC launches investigation into Crown Industries and Harrington Corp board member." "You didn't," David gasped. "You tried to destroy me," Michael said, standing up. "Worse, you were willing to hurt an innocent woman and her child to do it. That's not business, David, that's cruelty." "She changed you," David spat out. The old Michael would have understood that business requires tough decisions. "No, Elise reminded me of who I used to be, before money and power made me forget what really matters." As David was escorted out of the building by security, Michael rushed to Mabel's diner, but Elise's friend Jenny met him at the door. "She's not here," Jenny said. "She quit this morning, said something about starting fresh somewhere else." Michael's heart sank. "Where did she go?" "She made me promise not to tell you, said it was better this way." But as Michael turned to leave, Jenny called after him. "Although she did mention Tommy has a doctor's appointment at St. Mary's Hospital this afternoon, but I didn't tell you that." Michael had won the battle for his company. Now he had just hours to win back the woman he loved, if it wasn't already too late. Traffic was at a standstill, and Michael checked his watch for the 10th time. St. Mary's Hospital was 20 blocks away, and Tommy's appointment was in 30 minutes. He couldn't be late. Not today. "Forget this," he muttered, getting out of his car. "Janet, deal with the car, I'm running." His assistant's voice came through his phone. "Sir, you're wearing a $3,000 suit." "I don't care about the suit." And Michael Harrington, CEO of one of New York's biggest companies, started running through the streets of Manhattan. People stared as he dodged through crowds, jumped over puddles, and nearly collided with a hot dog cart. The Michael from 2 months ago would have died of embarrassment, but that Michael hadn't known Elise. At the hospital, he finally spotted them in the waiting room. Tommy was playing with a toy car while Elise filled out paperwork. She looked up as Michael approached, out of breath and sweating through his expensive suit. "What are you doing here?" she asked, standing quickly. "Don't leave," he said between breaths. "Please, just hear me out." "Mr. Michael," Tommy said excitedly. "You look funny. Did you run here?" 20 blocks, Michael managed to say, collapsing into a chair. "Had to catch you before." "Tommy Parker," a nurse called out. "That's us," Elise said, gathering their things. "Michael, I have to take him in." "I'll wait," Michael said firmly. "All day if I have to." For the next hour, Michael sat in the waiting room, ignoring the constant calls and messages flooding. His phone. The news about David had exploded. Reporter wanted statements. The board wanted an emergency meeting. Shareholders were panicking. None of it mattered. Finally, Elise and Tommy came out. The boy was proudly wearing a sticker that said, "Brave patient." "The doctor says my asthma's getting better," Tommy announced. "That's great, buddy," Michael said, then looked at Elise. "Can we talk? Please." Elise hesitated, then turned to her son. "Tommy, why don't you show the nice lady at the front desk your sticker? I'll be right there." Once Tommy was out of earshot, Elise spoke first. "I saw the news about your brother. I'm sorry." "I'm not," Michael said. "David made his choices. But Elise, you have to know. None of what happened was about you. He was trying to steal the company and he used you as a distraction. It doesn't matter why it happened. The result is the same. My son's privacy was violated. My life was turned upside down. And for what? Because I returned a suitcase. Because you showed me what real integrity looks like," Michael corrected her. "Because you made me want to be a better man. I never asked for that responsibility." "No, you didn't. You also didn't ask for any of this chaos, but Elise..." Michael took a deep breath. "I love you, and I think you might love me too." Elise's eyes filled with tears. "It's not that simple. Actually, it is. Everything else, the company, the press, the gossip, that's what's complicated. But this..." He took her hand. "This is simple. Do you love me?" Before Elise could answer, Tommy came running back. "Mom, Mr. Michael, look what the lady gave me." He was holding a small teddy bear wearing a doctor's coat. "That's awesome, buddy," Michael said, kneeling down to Tommy's level. "Hey, can I ask you something? How would you feel about having dinner with me and your mom tonight? I make pretty good spaghetti." Tommy's eyes lit up. "Can we, Mom? Please?" Elise looked at her son's hopeful face, then at Michael, still disheveled, from his run through the city, still holding her hand, still looking at her like she was the most important person in the world. "Your fancy penthouse probably doesn't even have spaghetti," she said, but there was a smile playing at her lips. "Then we'll go shopping," Michael replied. "I know this great little grocery store near your apartment. The owner, Mrs. Chen, she's been teaching me about normal people food." A laugh escaped Elise's lips. "You've been taking cooking lessons from Mrs. Chen? 3 times a week, while you're at your night classes. She says I'm hopeless, but she hasn't given up on me yet." The image of Michael Harrington, corporate titan, learning to cook from the owner of a small grocery store, broke through Elise's final defenses. "One dinner," she said softly. "We'll see how it goes." Tommy cheered, and Michael's face lit up with a smile that made him look years younger. But as they walked toward the hospital exit, a crowd of reporters was waiting. "Mr. Harrington, what? Can you tell us about your brother's arrest? Is it true the board is splitting up the company? Are the rumors about your relationship with Ms. Parker true?" Michael felt Elise tense beside him. This was it, the moment that would define everything. He could dodge the reporters, pretend he didn't know her, protect his corporate image. Instead, he took her hand firmly in his, put his other hand on Tommy's shoulder and faced the cameras. "Actually," he said clearly, "I'd love to tell you about Elise Parker. She's the woman who taught me that some things are worth more than money. She's the reason I finally had the courage to expose corporate corruption. And right now, she's about to find out if I'm as bad at cooking spaghetti as Mrs. Chen thinks I am." The reporters erupted with more questions, but Michael just smiled. "If you'll excuse us, we have some grocery shopping to do. Oh, and one more thing." He looked directly into the nearest camera. "The next person who takes a picture of this woman's son without permission will face the full legal power of the Harrington Corporation. That's not a threat. It's a promise from a man protecting his family." As they walked away from the stunned reporters, Elise squeezed his hand. "Family, huh? Too soon?" Michael asked nervously. No, she said softly. Maybe not soon enough. The spaghetti was terrible. The sauce was too watery, the noodles were stuck together, and Michael had somehow managed to burn the garlic bread. But sitting around Elise's small kitchen table, with Tommy telling animated stories about school, and Elise trying not to laugh at Michael's wounded expression, it was the best dinner he'd ever had. Maybe we should order pizza, Michael suggested, poking at a clump of pasta. No way, Elise said, taking another brave bite. You cooked this for us, we're eating it. Mom says we have to appreciate when people do nice things, Tommy added wisely, though he was mostly pushing the spaghetti around his plate. The next few weeks brought changes no one had expected. Michael insisted on handling the press, making it clear that his private life was not up for discussion. But merging their worlds proved more challenging than anyone anticipated. One morning, Elise woke up to find an army of cleaners in her apartment. "Michael," she called out, still in her pajamas, "what is this?" "I thought it would help," he said, looking confused. "You work so hard. I wanted to make things easier by having strangers go through my things without asking me. This is my home, Michael. You can't just take over like this." The cleaners were sent away, and Michael learned his first lesson about love. Good intentions weren't enough. He had to learn to ask, to listen, to understand that his way wasn't always the right way. Then came the parent-teacher conference at Tommy's school. Michael insisted on attending with Elise. "Mr. Harrington," Tommy's teacher said, clearly flustered by his presence, "we weren't expecting you. Please call me Michael. I want to be involved in Tommy's education." But after the meeting, Elise was quiet. "What's wrong?" Michael asked, as they walked to the car. "I thought it went well. It did, too well. Did you notice how differently they treated us because you were there? Last year, when I asked for extra help with Tommy's reading, they said they were too busy. Today, they're offering private tutoring and special programs." Michael started to understand. His presence, his name, his money, they changed how the world treated Elise and Tommy, and not always in ways that felt right. The real test came when Michael suggested they move in together. He had found a beautiful brownstone. Not as flashy as his penthouse, but still elegant. "It's perfect," he said excitedly. "Plenty of room for Tommy to play, a garden for you, and it's close to your nursing school." "Michael," Elise said gently, "we can't afford this." "I can. That's not the point. I need to be able to stand on my own feet." "What if—" She hesitated. "What if what? What if this doesn't work out? I need to know Tommy and I will be okay on our own." It hurt, but Michael understood. They were still building trust, still learning how to be together without losing themselves. The solution came from an unexpected source. One evening, while Michael was attempting to cook again, this time with supervision from Mrs. Chen, Elise came home bursting with news. "Remember that nursing scholarship I applied for? The one for single parents?" Her eyes were shining. "I got it! Full tuition, plus a stipend for living expenses." Michael dropped the spatula he was holding and hugged her tight. "That's amazing. I knew you could do it. Now we can look for a new apartment," Elise said. "Something better than this place, but still within my budget. Or," Michael said carefully, "we could look at that brownstone again. You'll have your scholarship money for your share of expenses. I'll handle my part. True partners." Elise considered this. "You'd really be okay with that? Me paying what I can, even though it's nowhere near half? What matters is that we both contribute what we can. Different doesn't mean unequal." That night, after Tommy was asleep, they sat on Elise's worn couch, planning their future. "The board wants me to change," Michael admitted. "They say my common touch is making shareholders nervous." "Are you going to?" "Actually, I'm thinking of changing the company instead, starting a foundation for single parents who want to continue their education, using our resources to make a real difference." Elise looked at him thoughtfully. "The ruthless businessman I met 2 months ago wouldn't have dreamed of that." "The ruthless businessman never knew what real wealth was," Michael said, pulling her close. "I could lose every penny tomorrow, and as long as I had you and Tommy, I'd still be the richest man in New York." A knock at the door interrupted them. It was Mrs. Chen from the grocery store, carrying a paper bag. "I saw your lights on," she said. "Brought you some real pasta and sauce. That poor man needs all the help he can get in the kitchen." They all laughed, and as Michael watched Elise and Mrs. Chen discuss proper pasta cooking techniques, he realized something important. He hadn't just gained a relationship with Elise and Tommy. He'd gained a community, a neighborhood, a whole new way of seeing the world. Later that night, as they looked at pictures of the brownstone again, Elise asked, Are you sure about all this? Living in a regular neighborhood? Shopping at regular stores? Being normal? Michael thought. About his empty penthouse, his lonely business dinners, his life before that rainy night when Elise knocked on his door. I've never been more sure of anything, he said, though I do have one condition. What's that? We're hiring a cooking tutor. Mrs. Chen deserves a break. Moving day brought chaos to the brownstone. Elise's modest furniture looked lost in the larger spaces, while Michael's expensive pieces seemed oddly out of place. Tommy ran from room to room, claiming every space as his new headquarters. Where should we put this? Asked one of the movers, holding up a crystal vase worth more than Elise's old apartment's yearly rent. The donation pile, Michael said, without hesitation. We're starting fresh. But starting fresh wasn't as simple as getting rid of old furniture. The annual Harrington Corporation Charity Gala was approaching, and Michael wanted Elise and Tommy there. It's important for the company, he explained over breakfast. The board is still nervous after everything with David. They need to see stability. Elise looked down at her nursing textbook. I have an exam the next day. You can study after. Please, I need you there. The night of the gala arrived, and Elise felt like an imposter in her new designer dress. Tommy, at least, was having fun, charming everyone in his little tuxedo. Michael tells us you're in nursing school, one board member's wife said with a practiced smile. How ambitious. Though surely now that you're with Michael, you don't need to work. Before Elise could respond, another woman joined them. I hear you used to be a waitress? My niece is a waitress too, perhaps you know her. She works at that lovely French place downtown. Elise felt her face burn. They were being polite, but their message was clear. She didn't belong. Across the room, Michael was dealing with his own challenges. Alexander Reed, his largest shareholder, was expressing concerns. The Foundation for Single Parents, the community outreach programs, it's all very noble, Michael, but our investors are worried you're losing focus. Our profits are up 15% since last quarter, Michael pointed out. Yes, but your image? Look, no one's questioning your right to personal happiness, but perhaps Ms. Parker could keep a lower profile. The press still talks about her returning that suitcase. Some people think it was staged. Michael's response was cut off by a commotion near the dessert table. Tommy had accidentally knocked over a display of chocolate fountains and melted. Chocolate was everywhere. I'm sorry. Tommy was close to tears. I just wanted to see how it worked. Elise rushed to comfort him, not caring that chocolate was getting on her expensive dress. But she could hear the whispers, see the looks. That night, after Tommy was asleep in their new home, Elise found Michael in his study. Maybe they're right, she said quietly. Maybe I should keep a lower profile. No, Michael said firmly. They're the ones who need to change, not you. It's not just about me. Did you see how they looked at Tommy? Like he was some kind of invasion from another world? Then we'll build our own world, Michael declared. But even as he said it, he knew it wouldn't be that simple. The next morning, Elise got an unexpected call from her old boss at Mabel's diner. Jenny's out sick, he said. We're swamped. I know you've got your new life and all, but I'll be there in 20 minutes, Elise said without hesitation. When Michael came looking for her later, he was surprised to find her in her old waitress uniform, serving coffee to regular customers who greeted her like family. What are you doing? He asked, confused. Being me, she replied, filling a customer's cup. I needed to remember who I am. Michael watched her move through the diner with confidence and grace. Here, she wasn't Michael Harrington's girlfriend or an outsider in a designer dress. She was just Elise, and everyone loved her for it. He sat down at the counter, and she brought him coffee without asking. 2 sugars, light cream, she said with a smile. Some things don't change. You didn't have to do this, he said softly. Yes, I did. Michael, I love you, and I love our life together. But I can't lose myself in your world. I need to keep parts of who I was. As if to prove her point, Tommy burst through the diner's door after school, greeting all the regular customers by name. Mom, Mr. Earl helped me with my math homework while he had his coffee. Mr. Earl, a retired teacher who'd been coming to the diner for 20 years, beamed with pride. The boy's got a good head for numbers. Michael looked around the diner, at the mix of working people and students, at the comfortable way Tommy moved through the space at Elise in her familiar uniform. He thought about the stiff formality of the gala, the whispers, the judgments. Then he had an idea. What if, he said slowly, instead of trying to fit into my world or staying completely in yours, we built something new, Something that takes the best of both. What do you mean? The foundation I'm starting. Instead of running it from a corporate office, what if we based it here, in real neighborhoods with real people? Elise raised an eyebrow. You want to run a multi-million-dollar foundation from a diner? Why not? This place knows more about community than any boardroom I've ever been in. Before Elise could respond, the diner's door chimed again. This time, it was Alexander Reed, looking extremely out of place in his $1,000 suit. Michael, he said stiffly, we need to talk about your recent decisions. But as he stood there, Tommy came running up. Mom, can I have a chocolate milkshake? I finished all my homework. Homework first, sweets later, Elise said automatically. Those are the rules. Alexander watched this exchange with surprise, then even more surprise when Michael added, listen to your mom, buddy, rules are rules. Somehow Alexander found himself sitting at the counter while Elise poured him coffee. An hour later he was still there, listening to Michael's plans for community-based charitable initiatives. You know, Alexander said thoughtfully, my mother ran a diner like this, paid my way through business school with those tips. He looked at Elise. She would have liked you. As the sun set outside Mabel's diner, something shifted. It wasn't a complete victory. There would still be galas to attend, judgments to face, challenges to overcome. But in that moment, watching Alexander Reed eat a slice of apple pie while Tommy showed him his math homework, Michael and Elise knew they were on the right path. Their world wouldn't be his or hers. It would be something entirely new, and maybe, just maybe, it would be better than either of them had imagined. The idea of running a charitable foundation from Mabel's diner seemed crazy at first, but as Michael sat in his usual booth, watching Elise serve coffee while simultaneously helping a young mother fill out a scholarship application, he knew they were onto something special. We've already helped 3 single parents get into nursing programs, Elise said excitedly during her break, and Mrs. Chen is organizing a group of local business owners who want to offer apprenticeships. Michael smiled, but his expression turned serious as he showed her the morning's newspaper. The business section had a scathing article. Harrington Air goes rogue. Corporate leader trades boardroom for greasy spoon. They just don't understand, he said. Not yet. But understanding was coming from unexpected places. Victoria Stone, of all people, showed up at the diner one rainy Tuesday morning. I heard what you're doing here, she said, looking uncomfortable in the casual setting. My mother, she was a single mum. Worked 2 jobs to put me through business school. Elise tensed, remembering their last encounter, but Victoria wasn't there to cause trouble. I want to help, she said simply. My company has a mentorship program for women in business. Maybe we could expand it. Meanwhile, Tommy was thriving in their new life. His asthma was better, and his grades had improved thanks to the impromptu homework club that had formed at the diner. Mr. Earl, the retired teacher, had recruited other retired educators who now spent their afternoons helping kids with everything, from math to science projects. But not everyone was happy with the changes. One evening, as Michael and Elise were closing up the diner, a group of board members arrived unannounced. This has gone far enough, Gerald Matthews, the eldest board member, declared. Michael, your father built this company through discipline and traditional values. What would he think of this? He gestured around the diner, where the walls were now covered with flyers for education programs and job training opportunities. My father, Michael said thoughtfully. Let me tell you about my father. His first job was as a janitor. He worked nights and studied during the day. Someone gave him a chance, helped him get his start. That's all we're doing here, giving people a chance. It's not just about chances, Elise added quietly. It's about dignity. Every person who comes through that door has value, has potential. We're just helping them see it. Tommy, who had been doing his homework nearby, spoke up. Like how Mr. Earl helped me with fractions. Mom, tell them about Maria, who's going to medical school. Gerald Matthews looked at Tommy, then at the hope shining in the boy's eyes, and something in his stern expression softened. Perhaps, he said slowly, I could stop by next week, see this program of yours in action. The real breakthrough came when Michael convinced the board to hold their next charity committee meeting at the diner. Bankers in expensive suits sat next to construction workers on their lunch break. Corporate lawyers shared tables with nursing students. The thing is, Michael explained to the board, we've been doing charity from a distance, writing checks, from high-rises to people we never meet. But here we see the impact every day. As if to prove his point, a young woman approached their table, tears in her eyes. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but I just got accepted to law school. The foundation's scholarship. I never thought I'd have this chance. My kids will see. Their mom become a lawyer. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but Alexander Reed spoke up. You know, he said, we spend millions on market research to understand our communities. Maybe we've been going about this all wrong. That night, after everyone had left, Elise found Michael sitting alone in their favorite booth. Penny, for your thoughts, she asked, sliding in beside him. I was just thinking about that night you returned the suitcase, he said. I thought I was the one with all the power, all the answers. But you had something I'd never understood before. What's that? Real wealth. The kind that comes from being part of a community, from helping others, from knowing who you are and standing firm in your values. Elise leaned her head on his shoulder. We're building something special here, aren't we? We are. Though I have to admit, I never thought I'd be so happy about trading board meetings for burger specials. Just then, Tommy came running in from the kitchen where he'd been helping Mrs. Chen clean up. Mom, Michael, Mrs. Chen's grandson got into college. First one in their family. Can we have a party? Of course we can, buddy, Michael said, ruffling Tommy's hair. That's what family does. Family, Tommy repeated thoughtfully. You know, Michael, since you and Mum are getting married next month, does that mean I can call you Dad? Michael froze, his heart skipping a beat. They hadn't told Tommy about the engagement yet, wanting to find the right moment. How did you know about that? Elise asked, surprised. Tommy grinned. I saw Michael asking Mrs. Chen how to hide the ring in a fortune cookie. She said it was a bad idea because someone might eat it. Michael laughed. Well, there goes my romantic proposal plan. Good, Elise said, kissing him softly. I like this version better. Outside, the city lights twinkled as night fell. Inside Mabel's diner, a family, unconventional as it might be, held each other close. And in that moment, the distance between penthouses and diners, between boardrooms and coffee counters, didn't seem so great after all. Because sometimes the greatest journeys aren't about moving up in the world, but about finding where you truly belong. And sometimes the most valuable things in life don't come with price tags. They come with coffee refills, homework help, and love that crosses all boundaries. Wedding planning brought out the clash between their worlds all over again. Michael's event planner presented elaborate plans for a 500-guest extravaganza at the Plaza Hotel. Elise wanted a simple ceremony in the park near the diner. The board expects certain things, Michael's assistant Janet explained gently. The Harrington wedding will be the social event of the season. But it's not the Harrington wedding, Elise said firmly. It's our wedding, mine and Michael's. The tension came to a head during a cake tasting session at an exclusive bakery. The owner kept directing all questions to Michael, ignoring Elise completely. Perhaps Madame would prefer something more simple, the baker suggested with a condescending smile when Elise spoke up. Michael put down his fork. Actually, we need to go. There's another bakery we need to visit. He drove them straight to Mrs. Chen's cousin's small bakery in Queens. Best red velvet cake in New York, Mrs. Chen had told them, and Linda will treat you like family. The tiny shop was cramped and didn't have fancy presentations, but Linda welcomed them with genuine warmth. She listened to their ideas, shared her own suggestions, and treated Elise like her opinion mattered. This is it, Elise said, tasting a perfectly moist vanilla cake with fresh fruit filling. This is our wedding cake. But just when they thought they'd found their balance, David resurfaced. Michael's brother had been released pending his trial, and he was desperate to repair his reputation. I want to make things right, he said, showing up at the diner one morning. Let me help with the wedding. Show everyone our family is still strong. Our family, Michael repeated coldly. You tried to destroy everything I care about. I was wrong, David admitted. Seeing what you've built here, it's different from what Dad would have done, but it's making a real difference. Please, brother, give me a chance to be part of it. Before Michael could respond, Tommy came bouncing up to their table. Uncle David, he said excitedly, want to see my science project? Mr. Earl helped me build a real volcano. David looked startled at being called Uncle David, but something in his expression softened as Tommy dragged him over to see the project displayed proudly near the diner's entrance. Later that night, Elise found Michael staring at old family photos. What are you thinking? She asked. That maybe everyone deserves a second chance, he said quietly. Isn't that what we're teaching people here every day? The wedding plans slowly came together, but not in the way anyone expected. The ceremony would be held in the park, but the reception would be at Mabel's diner, transformed for the evening into something magical, but still true to itself. The guest list was as mixed as their lives had become. Corporate executives would sit next to diner regulars. Society ladies would share tables with nursing students. Tommy would be the ring bearer, and Mrs. Chen was the unofficial wedding planner. But a week before the wedding, crisis struck. The press got hold of David's involvement in the wedding plans, and the story exploded. Business reporters questioned Michael's judgment. Society columnists predicted disaster. Some corporate sponsors threatened to pull out of the foundation. Elise found Michael in their bedroom, looking defeated. "Maybe we should postpone," he said. "Wait for this to blow over." "No," Elise said firmly. "We're not letting them win. Not now." She sat next to him and took his hand. "Remember that night I brought back your suitcase? You asked me why I did it, and I said because it wasn't mine. Well, this life we're building, it is ours, all of it. The messy parts, the beautiful parts, the parts that don't fit anyone else's expectations. But the foundation will be stronger for showing that we believe in second chances. Real ones." The next day, instead of hiding from the press, they invited them to the diner. David stood beside his brother as Michael announced the foundation's new initiative, a program specifically designed to help former white-collar offenders rebuild their lives through community service and mentorship. "Everyone deserves a chance to change," Michael told the reporters. "I know because loving Elise and Tommy changed me." The story shifted. What had been a scandal became a story of redemption, of family, of second chances. The night before the wedding, the diner was busy with final preparations. Paper lanterns hung from the ceiling, and fresh flowers filled every corner. But it still smelled like coffee and apple pie, and the regulars still came in for their usual orders. Tommy sat at the counter, practicing his ring bearer duties with Mr. Earl. Victoria Stone was there too, helping Mrs. Chen arrange flowers and actually laughing at the older woman's jokes. David worked quietly in the background, hanging decorations and following Mrs. Chen's strict instructions. "You know what's funny?" Elise said to Michael as they watched their unlikely family come together. "If you hadn't lost that suitcase—" "I didn't lose it," Michael corrected her with a smile. "I left it exactly where you would find it." Elise stared at him. "What?" "I saw you walking home from work that night. You always stopped to help old Mr. Peterson with his grocery bags, always had a kind word for everyone. I'd been watching you for weeks, trying to understand how someone could be so genuinely good." "So you left $100,000 on the street just to test me?" "No," Michael laughed. "I left it because I knew you'd return it, and I hoped it would give me a chance to meet you properly." "Michael Harrington," Elise said, shaking her head, "are you telling me you staged our entire first meeting?" "Best business decision I ever made," he said, pulling her close. "Though I have to admit, I never expected it to end up like this." He gestured around the diner, at Tommy and Mr. Earl, at Mrs. Chen bossing around a corporate CEO, at David quietly seeking redemption, at the way their two worlds had collided and created something entirely new. "Are you disappointed?" Elise asked softly. Michael looked at his soon-to-be wife, at their son, at the family they'd built that was so different from anything he'd imagined. "Only that it took me so long to learn what real wealth looks like," he said, and kissed her as the evening sun turned the diner's windows to gold. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright. In the park, white chairs lined the path to a simple arch decorated with flowers from Mrs. Chen's garden. Inside Mabel's diner, now transformed into a reception venue, sunshine streamed through. Windows lined with twinkling lights. Elise stood in her old apartment above the diner, where she'd insisted on getting ready. Her wedding dress wasn't from a fancy boutique. It was made by Mrs. Martinez, Tommy's former babysitter, who turned out to be a skilled seamstress. "Something borrowed," Jenny said, holding out a delicate silver bracelet. "It was my grandmother's." "Something blue," Mrs. Chen added, pinning a forget-me-not to Elise's bouquet. "Something old," Victoria Stone said quietly, surprising everyone. She held out a small box. "It was my mother's necklace. She wore it at her wedding. She was a waitress, too, back then." Elise touched the simple pearl necklace with trembling fingers. "Victoria, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll wear it, and that you'll keep taking care of Michael. He's different now. Better." In another room above the diner, Michael adjusted his tie while David helped Tommy with his ring-bearer duties. "Nervous?" David asked his brother. "Not about marrying." Elise and Michael said, "But I want everything to be perfect for her." "It already is," David replied. "Because you finally learned what she knew all along. That perfect isn't about appearance, it's about being real." Tommy bounded over, proudly showing off his suit. "Mom's going to cry when she sees us." Happy tears, though. You know what, buddy? Michael knelt down to Tommy's level. Before we go down, I have something for you. He pulled out a small box. Inside was a gold pocket watch with an inscription, "To my son, Tommy. Time is precious, but love is timeless." Love, Dad? Tommy's eyes went wide. Really? You want me to call you Dad? More than anything, if you want to. Tommy threw his arms around Michael's neck. I've been practicing. Want to hear how it sounds? Dad, Dad, Dad. Meanwhile, the park had filled with an unusual mix of guests. Corporate executives sat next to diner regulars. Society ladies chatted with nursing students. Mr. Earl had organized a small choir of neighborhood children to sing. When the music started, Tommy walked down the aisle first, carefully carrying the rings and occasionally stopping to wave at people he knew, which was nearly everyone. Then Elise appeared and the whole world seemed to hold its breath. She walked down the aisle alone, but she was far from lonely. Every step was lined with people who had become family. Mrs. Chen wiped away tears. Mr. Earl beamed with grandfatherly pride. Even Alexander Reed was seen dabbing at his eyes with a silk handkerchief. Michael, waiting under the arch, felt his heart stop when he saw her. She wasn't wearing an expensive designer dress or dripping with diamonds. She was simply Elise, beautiful, real, and entirely herself. Their vows weren't traditional. How could they be? I promise to always return what isn't mine, Elise said with a smile, except for your heart, which I plan to keep. I promise to never again think I can buy happiness, Michael replied, because you taught me that the best things in life aren't things at all. Tommy insisted on adding his own promise. I promise to always do my homework and help at the diner, and love both my parents even when Dad burns the toast. After the ceremony, the celebration moved to the diner. Crystal champagne glasses sat next to coffee mugs. Gourmet canapes shared space with Mabel's famous apple pie. Linda's wedding cake took center stage, 5 tiers of simple elegance that somehow bridged both their worlds. David stood to make his best man speech, his hands shaking slightly. When we were kids, he said, Michael and I thought we knew what success looked like. Corner office, expensive car, all the trappings of wealth. But my brother found something I'm only now beginning to understand, that true success is measured by the lives you touch, the community you build, and the love you share. As the evening went on, something magical happened. The lines between their two worlds began to blur and then disappear altogether. A Supreme Court judge got into a heated discussion about baseball with Mr. Earl. Victoria Stone learned to make coffee from Jenny. Alexander Reed's wife signed up to volunteer at the foundation. Near midnight, Michael found Elise sitting in their favorite booth watching the dancing. Happy? He asked, sliding in beside her. Look, she said, pointing to the dance floor. Tommy was teaching David how to do some complicated handshake he'd learned at school. Mrs. Chen was waltzing with Alexander Reed. Victoria was helping Mr. Earl hand out pieces of wedding cake. Remember when we thought our worlds were too different to mix? Elise asked. Turns out we were wrong about a lot of things, Michael said. The board meeting tomorrow will be interesting. Oh? Well, it might be a bit unconventional having it here at the diner, but since we own it now. Elise sat up straight. We what? Wedding present from the previous owner. He's retiring and said there's only one couple he trusts to keep Mabel's legacy alive. Tears filled Elise's eyes. So we really can have it all? The foundation, the diner, our family? Speaking of family, Michael nodded toward the door. Tommy was there now, wearing his suit jacket like a cape and performing magic tricks for a group of children, a mix of corporate kids and neighborhood friends, all laughing together. Dad, he called out, come see my new trick. Mom taught me during her break yesterday. Michael squeezed Elise's hand. Shall we? They joined their son, their family, their community, all the pieces of their lives that had somehow fit together perfectly, like a puzzle they hadn't known they were solving. Later that night, after the last guest had left and Tommy had fallen asleep on a pile of tablecloths, Michael and Elise stood outside the diner, the same spot where, months ago, she had found a suitcase that changed both their lives. You never did cash that reward check I offered you, Michael remembered. I didn't need it, Elise said. I got something better. What's that? She looked at their diner, at the sign that now read Mabel's Where Community Meets Coffee, at the foundation office they'd built next door, at the life they'd created that was bigger and better than either of them had dreamed. I got everything, she said simply, and kissed him under the starlit sky. Inside the diner, the coffee machine hummed softly, ready for another day of serving lawyers and laborers, dreamers and doers, all the people who had become part of their extended family. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about overcoming differences, but about realizing that underneath it all, we're all just people looking for a place to belong. And sometimes that place is a diner in New York City, where a lost suitcase and an honest heart proved that happy endings don't just happen in fairy tales. They happen when two people are brave enough to knock on each other's doors and strong enough to keep them open for others to walk through. The end.